One of my favorite pundits is Charles Krauthammer. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a couple of times when he's on a book tour. Other than that, his contract with Fox News does not allow him to do interviews with other media. He's so smart and so principled, and he writes so clearly. I'm obviously a fan, and I'm not alone. His last book, which is just a collection of his newspaper columns, sold more than 1 million copies. 1 million copies of a book, just for a collection of old newspaper columns. That's amazing. Anyways, Krauthammer wrote something so smart yesterday about the Iran deal that Obama has signed, and I am totally convinced by it and terrified too. Can I take you through it? I'm not going to just read the whole column to you, although I'm tempted to. But here, let me start. Here's Krauthammer. He says, when you write a column, as did I 2 weeks ago, headlined "The Worst Agreement in U.S. Diplomatic History," you don't expect to revisit the issue. We had hit bottom. Or so I thought. Then on Tuesday, the final terms of the Iranian nuclear deal were published. I was wrong. Okay, how can it even be worse than the worst? Here's how. Krauthammer again. Who would have imagined we would be giving up the conventional arms and ballistic missile embargoes on Iran in nuclear negotiations? When asked at his Wednesday press conference why there was nothing in the deal about the 4 American hostages being held by Iran, President Barack Obama explained that this is a separate issue, not part of nuclear talks. Are conventional weapons not a separate issue? After all, conventional by definition means non-nuclear. Why are we giving up the embargoes? So not only did Iran get America's approval to build nuclear bombs, but just delayed 10 years, not right now, Iran also got all sanctions lifted on it for other weapons too. Iran is looking to buy the most sophisticated Russian anti-aircraft and anti-ship missiles, and Obama just okayed that. Here, let me quote Krauthammer again. The net effect of this capitulation will be not only to endanger our Middle East allies now under threat from Iran and its proxies, but to endanger our own naval forces in the Persian Gulf. Imagine how Iran's acquisition of the most advanced anti-ship missiles would threaten our control over the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, waterways we have kept open for international commerce for half a century. Why? Because Obama doesn't believe America should be a dominant country, especially not in the Middle East. Obama wants his legacy to be Iran as the regional superpower. That's why the nuclear deal isn't a nuclear ban. Here, read some more from Krauthammer. He says, the other major shock in the final deal is what happened to our assistance on anytime, anywhere inspections. Under the final agreement, Iran has the right to deny international inspectors access to any undeclared nuclear site. The denial is then adjudicated by a committee on which Iran sits. It then goes through several other bodies on all of which Iran sits. Even if the inspector's request prevails, the approval process can take 24 days. And what do you think will be left unscrubbed after 24 days? The whole process is farcical. I've shown you those sections of the deal before. I compared it to a restaurant health inspector. The only way a restaurant health inspection has any meaning is if it's a surprise. If you give the restaurant written notice and they can delay the inspection by 24 days, it could clean up any mess. In this case, Iran can hide its nuclear plans. The U.S. actually agreed to this, but here's the worst part. And this is what was news to me. This is what I didn't understand until Krauthammer said it. Ready? Get this. Congress won't get to vote on the deal until September. But Obama has already taken the agreement to the UN Security Council for approval. The 15-0 vote Monday to approve it will cancel all previous UN resolutions outlawing and sanctioning Iran's nuclear activities, meaning whatever Congress ultimately does, it won't matter, because the legal underpinning for the entire international sanctions regime against Iran will have been dismantled at the Security Council. 10 years of painstakingly constructed international sanctions will vanish overnight, irretrievably. Even if Congress rejects the agreement, do you think the Europeans, the Chinese, or the Russians will reinstate sanctions? The result? The United States is left isolated while the rest of the world does thriving business with Iran. As in, Obama knows Americans hate this deal. Even his own party senators and congressmen would not vote for it as it is. But like I said before, Obama is a post-American president. Here he is reading a book by that same title. He doesn't believe that America should have any particular say. In fact, if it's America on one side and the UN, Iran, and other foreign countries on the other side, he'll choose the UN and Iran. He's always been a globalist first. I don't care where his birth certificate says he was born. I care about where his heart and head are today. He simply doesn't believe in promoting America's national interests. Here's how Krauthammer ends his column. Iran will be flush with cash, legitimized as a normal international actor in good standing, recognized, as Obama once said, as a very successful regional power. Stopping Iran from going nuclear at that point will be infinitely more difficult and risky, which is Obama's triumph. He has locked in his folly. He has laid down his legacy, and we will have to live with the consequences for decades. America no longer leads the free world. I think Americans want to, even a lot of Democrats do, but I don't think the President of the United States does. He's the president for another year and a half. He might even get a second Nobel Peace Prize out of this. I'm sure he will, and so will John Kerry. But I'm equally sure that many more wars will be fought because of this dishonest peace deal. For the Rebel.Media, I'm Ezra Levance.